Hey guys, tonight we're wandering into one of the darker alleyways of history, beneath a cloudy Scottish sky, through a fog that smells faintly of chimney smoke and overdue rain, into the world of graveyards and guilt. You're in Georgian Edinburgh now, not the romantic side, with Enlightenment thinkers and polite tea. No, you're part of the night shift, the sort of work that never shows up in city tour brochures. You're a body snatcher, and you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up in the kind of bed that isn't really a bed, it's more a suggestion, a pile of lumpy straw, one fraying blanket, and a pillow that smells like it once belonged to a goat, or maybe still does. The air is damp, the walls are thinner than your moral compass, and your breath fogs the window. If you can call that cracked pane, and it's one surviving corner a window at all. It's after midnight, but you're not groggy. Adrenaline wakes you faster than any rooster. Tonight is a working night. Not the kind with ledgers and a light supper. No, your job starts where most people stop, at the grave. You pull on your coat, heavy with mud and yesterday's rain, and stuff your feet into boots still caked with cemetery clay. There's a dampness inside that never dries, no matter how long you sit by the hearth. It's like your shoes have their own small swamp ecosystem. But at least you're warm-ish, for now. You check the pouch by your hip, twine crowbar candle stubs, and one tarnished silver coin you keep for luck. You might need it. This isn't your first time sneaking into Greyfriars or Canongate Kirkyard, but each time feels like you're rolling the dice with the Reaper. The city is asleep, mostly. Well, the respectable bits are. Down in the Cowgate, someone's still arguing about whiskey, and a distant bottle shatters like an omen. But you don't head toward the noise. You slip through the closes, those narrow medieval alleyways with names like Flesh Market and Nidri Street, where shadows have lives of their own. It's drizzling now. Edinburgh drizzle, of course. Less rain and more like being licked by a bored ghost. The air smells of smoke, fish, and a hint of theological repression. Somewhere nearby, a dog howls. Hopefully, not a watchdog. You'd rather face a ghost than a terrier with trust issues. The graveyard looms ahead. High iron rails, like a rib cage of rust, encircle it. You know the gap in the side wall. Two stones loosen just enough to slip through if you duck and offer up a mild shoulder bruise. Inside is darker than your conscience. Gravestones lean like drunks at closing time. Some graves have been reinforced with mort-safe cages, heavy wrought iron structures meant to keep people like you out, or perhaps the dead in. Historians still argue whether these devices were more about public health panic, theft prevention, or pure superstition. Honestly, you don't care. You just avoid them. Too loud, too difficult, and too prone to unexpected creaks. You kneel at the newer plot, one barely mounded over. You chose this one carefully. A fresh burial, no visible mortsafe, and no fancy tomb to complicate things. Hopefully no family checking in by dawn. You whisper a quiet apology to no one in particular and begin to dig. The shovel makes a soft thunk with each bite of dirt, the rhythm both meditative and mortifying. You know how long it takes. You've timed yourself before, 11 inches down, still safe. 18, getting real. At 24 inches, you hear that first soft hollow echo. Wood. You pause. Your arms ache. Your back reminds you that you're not 20 anymore, and your breath comes in white puffs, like the grave itself is sighing. You scrape carefully around the edges. The coffin's not fancy. Pine, maybe, hammered together in a hurry. You pry up the lid. The nails squeal a little. Wooden protests in the dead of night. You wince, freeze, listen. Nothing but wind through lichens and your own heart, having a minor existential crisis. The body inside is wrapped in a shroud, damp already, cold of course, limp in a way that makes your stomach tighten. This is the moment. You reach in, fingers trembling, not from cold, but from everything else. You lift, awkward, heavy, heavier than you remember from last time. Something shifts, bones probably. You don't want to know what. You haul the bundle out, not too fast. Don't jostle, don't rip anything. It's not the corpse you're worried about, it's the payout. Any damage and the surgeons might turn you away, or worse, dock your fee. You bundle it up, lash the ankles, the shoulders. You whisper another apology, less out of guilt, more out of nervous habit, and hoist the body over your back. It smells faintly of embalming herbs, cheap tobacco, and finality. And just like that, your work begins. The smell hits you first. Not the corpse, though yes, there's a bit of that too, but the graveyard itself. It's a particular perfume. Moist soil, moss, candle drippings, decomposing flowers, and just the faintest hint of judgment from beyond. If eau de regret were a fragrance, this would be it. You breathe through your mouth. You shift the weight on your back. The body is bundled in a sheet that's soaked through already. It clings to your neck like a cold, wet scarf that hates you. Your boots squelch as you move. Grave mud, remember? And every step toward the wall feels like dragging your own crimes behind you. One slippery foot at a time, you reach the gap. That side hole in the kirkyard wall was never meant for people, and certainly not for smugglers carrying surprise cadavers. You twist, crouch, grunt, and pray the bones inside don't shift audibly. They do. You freeze. You wait. You curse softly into your collar. No footsteps. No shouts. No lantern light swinging through the dark. Just the wind again, brushing past headstones like it knows what you've done and disapproves, passively. You slip through. Now you're on the street. And here's the fun part. Getting this particular cargo to a buyer without drawing attention. You've wrapped the bundle in coarse burlap, lashed with rope. If anyone asks, it's just a very unfortunate sack of potatoes, or firewood, or maybe a sleeping uncle you're moving for. Reasons. You pass a lamplighter. He nods. You nod. Neither of you says a word. The streets are cobbled, damp, and uneven. Every step is a twisted ankle waiting to happen. And you're carrying a literal dead weight. You head toward Old Surgeon's Hall, but not directly. Too obvious. Down an alley, past the stables, around a corner, where someone's arguing in Gaelic over a fish. Edinburgh at night never quite sleeps. It mumbles, mutters, and occasionally throws bottles. You pause near a bakery's back wall. Warm air drifts from a vent grate, carrying with it the smell of burnt crust and yeast. It makes your stomach growl. You haven't eaten since yesterday's oatcakes, and even those were more suggestion of food than anything else. But you've got a job to do. Breakfast can wait until you've bartered this body. You take another alley, this one tighter. You sidle past stacked crates, and one highly suspicious cat with only one eye. It watches you. Judging? Maybe. Or maybe it just really wants to chew on a toe, and then you hear it. A whistle. 3 notes. Low, sharp, familiar. You answer with 2 clicks of your tongue, and a figure steps from the shadows. He's wearing a coat too big for him, a scarf wrapped twice around his face, and boots with mismatched soles. You've done business with him before. He doesn't give his name. You've stopped asking. He just gestures to the back door of a narrow stone building with soot-blackened bricks and no signage. Inside, it smells of lye, alcohol, and antiseptic desperation. He gestures to a slab table. You lower the body onto it, careful, quiet, reverent in the most ironic way. He pulls back the burlap, peeks under the shroud. You half expect him to clap or shake your hand. Instead, he grunts, counts a small stack of coins, and drops them into your palm. 18 shillings. You frown. That's it? Too old, he mutters. Teeth are bad. Left foot's damaged. You blink. It's not fruit, he shrugs. Not worth as much if they can't dissect the parts. You grit your teeth but say nothing. This isn't the place to argue. Besides, he's got friends. One of them is currently sharpening something in the corner. Could be a bone saw. Could be a warning. Historians still debate whether these under-the-table transactions were quietly accepted by the authorities, or if the city simply had too many dead bodies to police. The truth probably lies somewhere between indifference and convenience. You nod, pocket the coins, and leave. Outside, the air hits you like a wet slap. You're tired now, not just physically, but in the bones. This job wears on you, not because of the ethics. You made peace with those 4 corpses ago, but because every night is a gamble. And someday, you know, the grave you dig might be your own. You duck into a tavern. The fire is roaring, and the smell of spilled ale and stewed onions wraps around you like a greasy hug. You sink into a seat near the corner. A barmaid glances at you, then your boots, then your eyes. She knows. She always knows. But she brings the whiskey anyway. It burns going down, warms you more than your coat ever did. You exhale. You're alive. Still. The men around you are laughing about something. A horse, maybe. Or a priest with a limp. It doesn't matter. You sip your drink and try not to think about the body you just sold, or the ones you'll probably dig up next week, or the one you might become if someone slips the wrong word to the constables. Your coat smells like damp soil and whiskey. Your hands are raw. Your coin purse is heavier. And outside, the graveyard waits. You wake with a start, head resting against a wooden table sticky with someone else's spilled dreams. Your neck aches. Your fingers are still curled like they're gripping a spade. You groan softly. It's just after dawn. Edinburgh dawn, meaning it's gray, slushy, and only barely distinguishable from night. Your mouth tastes like ash and secrets. You blink around the tavern. It's mostly empty now. The barmaid snores softly on a bench by the hearth. A single rat scurries across the floor, dragging what might be a carrot or a toe. You don't investigate. You stretch, bones popping like a cheap fiddle, and step out into the morning air. The cold slices through you. Your coat is still damp from last night, and your boots make squelching noises that suggest you stepped in something not entirely earthly. Again, back at your room, if we're calling that damp cupboard above the tannery a room, you drop the coins into a cracked ceramic mug you keep under the floorboard. Your entire life savings could fit inside a scone. You stare at it for a moment, Then you open the wooden crate at the foot of your straw pile. Time to prep for another night. You keep your tools well hidden. A sack, a small spade, its handle wrapped in cloth to muffle noise. A curved iron hook, a short dull saw, a candle stub, a pouch of quicklime in case you need to speed up decomposition, which thankfully you haven't yet, although the temptation has flickered. Everything fits into a cloth roll you strap under your coat like a tailor with questionable morals. You tuck a bit of pork fat in your pocket, not for snacking, but to grease stuck coffin lids. It's the little things. And then there's the spoon. It's not really a spoon anymore, bent sideways, worn to the edge of usefulness, but it works wonders for gently prying loose a coffin nail or wedging into soft, freshly packed earth. You once tried using a chisel, but that clanged like church bells. This spoon? This spoon is stealth. Historians still argue whether body snatchers truly had a standardized kit or just used whatever was lying around. The truth, as usual, is grubbier. If it worked and it fit in a coat, it was professional gear. You repack your tools. Then you sit on your straw pile and wait. Waiting is part of the job. Waiting for funerals, for the rain to stop, for the constables to change shifts, for the ground to soften, or the right moon phase, or the neighbor's dog to finally lose interest in the smell of your boots. You pass the time counting windows. You listen to the tannery. Workers shout about leather and blame each other for missing knives. You smell boiling hides and consider changing careers. You don't, because the truth is, as much as you hate the work, you're good at it. Not everyone can stomach graveyards and grave consequences. Not everyone can memorize burial schedules or tell the difference between consecrated ground and ground that only pretends to be. Not everyone can lift a full-grown adult up a muddy slope without breaking a spine, yours or theirs. You glance at your hands, calloused, always dirt under the nails. You can scrub for hours and still find cemetery soil in your knuckles. One time, you found a tooth in your cuff. You don't talk about that night. As evening falls, you head to the square. Not to dig. Tonight's not for work. Tonight, you're gathering intel. You eavesdrop near the parish records office. An apprentice scribbles something about a burial in St. Cuthbert's. New grave, old family. Might be valuables in the coffin, too. You're not interested in those, not unless you want to hang for theft and desecration. You nod to yourself and back away before the clerk notices you exist. Back near the high street, you run into Dougal. Dougal used to work with you before his nerves got the better of him. He talks too much now. You pretend to listen as he rants about coffins made of stone and rumors of surgeons who pay triple for intact joints. You raise an eyebrow. Elbows? Knees, he whispers. Apparently, students love dissecting knees. You shake your head. The things people get excited about these days. You part ways. On your way home, you pass a churchyard. Not one you usually work. Too well lit, too well watched, but something catches your eye. A new plot. Fresh flowers. An expensive coffin, maybe. You make a mental note, and then you hear it. A sharp metallic clink from behind the tomb. You freeze. Step softly. Peer around. It's not the watchman. It's someone else. A man, thin, twitchy, reeking of gin. He's digging. You realize he's one of yours. Competition. You consider interrupting. Maybe scaring him off. But you also don't want a shovel to the face. So you back away slowly and let him finish. You know his face now. Next time, maybe you get there first. You walk home, tired, dirty, a little hungry, but alive. And tonight, that's enough. You spend the day pretending you're not what you are. You nod politely to your landlady. You buy a roll from the baker with your clean hand. You even pet a dog, which is either a sign of redemption or madness, depending on how last night's job went. You're good at keeping up appearances, except for your boots. Your boots always tell the truth. The sun is going down again, although in Edinburgh that mostly just means the sky turns a slightly darker shade of permanent cloud. You eat a piece of cheese that may be older than the deceased you dug up last week. Then it's time to work. Tonight's target is in a trickier yard, one of the ones with a watchman. You don't like watchmen. Not because they're dangerous, though some are. Not because they carry whistles and clubs, though they do. It's because they're unpredictable. Some of them are former snatchers themselves. They know the tricks. Others are just drunks who'd rather nap than patrol. And a few really truly hate you. This yard has one of those. You skirt the outer wall first. It's old stone, patched in places with wood and hope. You count the steps between lampposts. Listen for the clink of the watchman's boots. There it is. Thunk, pause, thunk. He's got a limp. Left leg. That's good to know. You wait until his rounds take him toward the far side of the yard. Then you slip through a loose plank, flatten yourself against a tomb, and breathe through your mouth. The air in here is thick, moist. You can smell the fresh dirt and flowers and maybe cabbage. You move quickly. The grave you want is near a stone angel missing half its face. The headstone is new, too new. You hope that means the soil's still loose, and not the kind that turns to sticky clay at the first sign of a Scottish drizzle. You drop to your knees and start to dig. Quietly, slowly, you use the spoon again, then your hands. The dirt is damp, heavy, and stubborn, like a bad landlord. Your fingers ache. A worm wriggles past your thumb, and for a moment you envy it. No rent, no guilt, no grave robbing record. 12 inches down, you hear something. Not wood, something else. Clink. You freeze. Clink, clink, and then a voice. Faint, drowsy. Who's there? You hold your breath. It's the watchman. Of course it is. You flatten against the grave, tools still in hand, dirt streaking your face like war paint for a very weird battle. You hear him stumble. Closer. Rats, he mutters. Always bloody rats. He walks past. Doesn't see you. Doesn't look down. You exhale through your teeth and whisper your most sincere thank you to Saint whoever handles idiots. Historians still argue whether graveyard watchmen in this era were underpaid, undertrained, or just deeply unlucky. Possibly all three. Once he's out of earshot, you resume digging. You finally reach the coffin, and with your fingers numb and shaking, you pry open the lid. You regret it instantly. It's not that the body is in poor shape. It's that the grave was booby-trapped. You've heard rumors. Rich families getting clever. Strings attached to bells. Fake coffins filled with sand. But this is new. As you lift the shroud, something jerks under your hand. A tripwire. Tiny, but effective. A small bell tied to a nearby bush starts to jingle softly. You freeze. Back away. Wait. Silence. And then, footsteps. Fast this time. No limp. Not the watchman. This is worse. This is the sexton. The man who lives on the grounds. Who sleeps lightly. Who carries a shotgun filled with God knows what. You grab the sack, half the body inside, and start running. You don't use the path. You crash through hedges, over tombstones, past a startled owl who hoots at you with unnecessary judgment. You leap the low part of the wall, scrape your shin, roll. Land hard. Keep running. You don't stop until you reach a butcher's alley 2 streets over, panting, bleeding, and clutching a sack that now only contains most of your night's profit. You lean against a wall and laugh, a shallow, wheezy laugh that says, "This job is ridiculous." And yet, you'll do it again because you're not in it for glory, or even for the coin, though that helps. You're in it because you're good at it, because someone has to be, because the surgeons always want more. The next day, you find out the watchman was fired. Apparently, someone stole 3 bodies that night. Not you, but you feel a strange twinge of pride. There's competition in this game, and right now, you're still ahead. Barely. You'd think digging up graves would be the hard part, the actual physical labor, the mud, the body hauling cardio. But no, that's just the warm up. The real challenge? Getting through a night of grave robbing without digging into your own regrets, or worse, into the wrong grave. Tonight, the church bells toll faintly as you lace up your boots. The same boots, yes. The ones still crusted with last week's mud and, let's generously say, debris. You consider cleaning them briefly. Then remember it would just make them look suspiciously tidy. No one trusts a pristine grave robber. You head out earlier than usual. Not because you're feeling ambitious, but because the target is complicated. Deceptively so. The family buried this one fast. Too fast. No viewing, no flowers, not even a proper obituary. Just a name etched into a stone that looks like it was carved by a drunk with a butter knife. That makes you curious. Curious and slightly nervous. Still, money's money. And this particular body, the surgeons specifically asked for it. You pass the usual landmarks. The alley with the cat that never blinks, the wall where someone scrawled repent or repeat, and the lamppost that flickers when you're about to make a bad decision. It's flickering now. How charming. You reach the graveyard. There's no watchman tonight, just the wind and a persistent drizzle that makes your coat smell like rotting canvas and wet apologies. You find the grave easily. It's newer than the rest. Soil barely settled, grass not even trying. You kneel, set out your tools, and start digging. The earth is soft, suspiciously soft. You pause, then keep going. 18 inches in, your spade hits something that's not wood. You tap again. Clink. Metal. You scrape away more soil, revealing the edges of something strange. It's a coffin, yes, but not the usual kind. This one's reinforced. Bolted shut. You squint at the markings, and then you realize it's a mort safe. Not the big, obvious iron cage kind. This one's newer, subtle, a metal frame inside the coffin, designed to make opening it difficult, time-consuming, loud. Historians still argue whether these were designed to protect the dead or just to annoy people like you. Mission accomplished, either way. You sigh. You didn't bring the full toolkit tonight. No hacksaw, no bolt turner, just a small pry bar and that ridiculous spoon. You try anyway. After half an hour, you've bent 2 nails, chipped a knuckle, and invented a few new curse words that would make a monk faint. And then you hear footsteps. Fast ones. Too fast to be random. You freeze again. This is becoming a theme. The footsteps stop just beyond the gate. Then, a hissed whisper. Oi, that you? It's Jamie. You exhale. Loudly. Jamie is your sometimes friend, sometimes rival, full-time danger magnet. He's wearing a coat made of patches and poor choices, and he's grinning. Alright, you're at it early, he says, peering into the grave like it's a picnic basket. Bit of a job, you mutter. He whistles. Mort safe, eh? Nasty one. Didn't expect it. He shrugs. Should have asked me. I scoped this place yesterday. Then why didn't you take it? He grins wider. Because I like breathing. And I heard the family hired extra eyes. You blink. What? He nods toward the shadows. That's why I followed you. Thought I'd warn you. You look around. The shadows look back. A lantern flares in the distance. Jamie grabs your sleeve. Come on. Forget the stiff. Let's run. You don't argue. You abandon the grave, the tools, the pride. You run through headstones, over roots, past some very offended pigeons. You don't stop until you're under South Bridge, panting like a broken bellows. Jamie laughs first, then you do. Because what else can you do? You didn't get the body. You didn't get paid, but you also didn't get arrested. Or worse. Some nights that's a win. Later, over drinks that taste like paint thinner and warm regret, Jamie tells you what he heard. Apparently, the body belonged to someone important. Important and inconvenient. A whistleblower? A patient from the asylum? No one's saying, but the surgeons wanted it quiet, fast, and clean. You got none of that. You nurse your drink, rubbing your sore hand. Think they'll still want it? You ask. Jamie smirks. Probably. But you'll need better tools. And maybe fewer morals. You nod slowly. He's not wrong. The next night, you return. Because of course you do. Not out of vengeance, mind you. This isn't a revenge story. This is a business model. That grave with the sneaky mort safe and the well-connected corpse, it's still worth money. Probably even more now. Surgeons love exclusivity. You're better prepared this time. Jamie lent you his bolt turner, though lent may be a generous word, considering he demanded half the payout and 3 sips of anything decent you own. You pack the works, pry bar, chisel, wrapped linen, extra sack, and just in case, a decoy rat skeleton. You'd be surprised how effective that last one is at clearing nosy church staff. You wait until well past midnight. The streets are quieter. Less, somebody might see you. More, if someone does, they're too drunk to remember. You slip back through the churchyard gate, heart drumming like it's got its own agenda. The grave hasn't been disturbed since last night. Except by you, obviously. You climb back into the hole, brushing off the rain-soaked soil like it personally offended you. This time, you work faster. The mort safe is still a nuisance, but with the proper leverage and slightly more confidence than is medically advisable, you get the lid cracked. You wince. The body inside is, well, let's say they weren't kidding about important. The clothes are finer than yours, even after burial. Silk cravat. Ring still on one hand. Hair suspiciously styled. For someone who's supposed to be decomposing. You pause. Just a second. He looks familiar. You don't linger on the thought. You've learned not to. The body's lighter than you expect. Worryingly so. But you hoist it into your sack, tie it tight, and crawl back out. The yard is still, no bells, no footsteps. Just a single raven sitting on a headstone, looking at you like it knows your cholesterol levels. You give it a nod and move on. Your route is more cautious this time. Through alleys that only rats remember. Past the silent black mouths of winds where even light dares not linger. The air is sharp, cold, smells like coal smoke and distant bread. You reach the back door of the anatomy theater. The man waiting there is new. Tall, coat too clean, mustache too smug. Payment? You say, hoisting the sack slightly. He gestures for you to bring it inside. You hesitate. Surgeons usually inspect first. This feels different. You step in. Inside, the table is ready. Bright lights, tools neatly laid out. Someone's already sharpening a scalpel with the sort of reverence most reserved for prayer. You drop the body. The sack falls open slightly. The tall man peers inside. His expression doesn't change, but his mustache seems disappointed. This isn't him. You blink. It's the grave you asked for. He shakes his head. Wrong, brother. You glance at the body, then back at him. They were buried next to each other. He sighs. That explains the silk. I wanted the mad one. You try not to take offense on behalf of the corpse. There's still payment, you say, voice tight. Half, he replies. And no extras for the hand this time. You leave with 9 shillings and a resentment that could curdle milk. You don't go home right away. You stop at the tavern. Same table, same peeling varnish, different whiskey. Jamie joins you, smells like peat smoke and bad ideas. Well, he asks. Wrong, brother. He cackles. You dug up Lord Flounce instead of Dr. Delirium? Apparently. He clinks his mug against yours. Close enough. You sip, then glance over. Ever feel like the city's watching you? Jamie blinks. No, that's just your guilt and the gin. But you do feel it. This job, the digging, the dealing, the secrets, it's starting to cling to you, like the damp in your boots, like the smell in your coat, like that familiar face in the coffin. Historians still argue whether body snatchers felt any remorse, whether they considered the dignity of the dead or just the weight of the coins in their pockets. You don't know, not really. But tonight, you wonder who'll dig you up someday, and whether anyone will pay full price. You dream of footsteps. Always footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Getting louder, not running, just coming. You wake with your heart hammering and a thin sheen of sweat clinging to your neck. It's still dark out. Your candles burn down to a stub, and your spine is doing that thing where it insists on reminding you that your bed is filled with hay and bad decisions. You sit up, groaning softly, and look around your room. It's the same as always. Cracked walls, water stains that resemble disapproving nuns, and a single sock you're convinced doesn't belong to you. But something feels off. Then you hear it again. Footsteps, outside on the landing. You freeze. Not constable fast. Not drunk and wandering fast. But quiet. Careful. Someone who knows how to walk without announcing it. You press yourself to the door. You don't breathe. The footsteps pause, then retreat. You don't sleep the rest of the night. By morning, you're pacing the floor. You tell yourself it's nothing. Could have been the landlord. Could have been rats in boots. Could have been nerves. But still, you check your tools 3 times and move your stash of coins from under the floorboard to inside your boot, where at least if someone steals it, they'll have to deal with your foot sweat first. You step out, squinting at the watery gray sky that Edinburgh calls sunrise. You're supposed to meet a contact this morning, a man who goes by Fox, just Fox. No first name, no profession, which usually means several. He buys oddities, not just bodies, but parts. Preserved limbs, skeletal hands, entire skulls if they're nicely shaped. The man is a walking anatomy exhibit with a bank account. You meet him in a tea house. Classy, clean, smells like cinnamon and secrets. You don't fit in at all. Fox is already seated, sipping something that costs more than your coat. He gestures for you to sit. I hear, he says in that soft, expensive voice, that you had a run-in with Lord Flounce. You blink. News travels fast. So do bodies, if they're light enough. He replies with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. You stare at him. You want something? He nods. Something specific. A skull. Male? Adult? No deformities. Preferably with all teeth intact. You lean back. That'll cost. Of course. He slides a pouch across the table. You don't count it. Too many eyes, but it clinks reassuringly. Any preferences? You ask. He considers. No syphilitic lesions. And if you could avoid any signs of tree panning, that would be lovely. You raise an eyebrow. You want a normal skull. Exactly. Historians still argue what people like Fox did with their collections. Study, display, whisper sweet nothings to them during thunderstorms. You've stopped asking. You leave the tea house feeling richer and more disturbed. The rest of your day is spent wandering the markets, not for food, but for gossip. You hear about a body buried too deep, one buried in the wrong plot, and one buried with a full set of ivory teeth, which immediately becomes top of your wish list. Then someone mentions a pauper's grave. Fresh. No one watching. No headstone yet. You take note. Night falls. You pack your kit. You've got a job to do. Fetch Fox his skull. That means selecting a grave not just for ease, but for cranium quality. You head for the paupers section of the cemetery, a part that's less well kept and more forgotten by God and maintenance staff. The graves are shallow. The soil is loose. The air smells like moss, mildew, and regret. You pick a plot. No stone, just a wooden marker with a barely legible scrawl. You dig quickly. It's easier here. No more safes. No mourning family to return with flowers. No risk of bells. Just you, the dirt, and a corpse waiting to be exhumed and decapitated for a man named after a woodland creature. You find the coffin. Thin, warped, you pry it open. The man inside looks peaceful. That never helps. You do what you have to do. You remove the head carefully. Wrap it in linen. Place it gently in the sack. You tell yourself it's just another object. But something about this one lingers. His face, the curve of his cheek. You feel like you've seen him before, in a pub, or maybe passing on the street. That thought unsettles you more than it should. You don't run this time. You walk, steady, through back streets and rain, past the flickering lamps and the pub that never seems to close. You glance over your shoulder once. The street's empty, but the feeling remains, like someone's still walking behind you. The skull sits on the table in your room, like a guest you're trying very hard to ignore. It's wrapped, of course, in the same linen you use for all your questionable errands, but even so, it feels like it's watching you, judging, whispering, possibly plotting. You know it's just your mind playing tricks. You haven't slept much. Or, well, but still, you drape your coat over it, just in case. A little cloth-based dignity for both of you. At dawn, you return to the tea house. Fox is waiting, of course. He always is. He's the sort of man who seems permanently mid-sentence and freshly powdered. He doesn't smile this time. Let's see it, he says, fingers twitching like a piano player anticipating a solo. You unwrap the skull with as much delicacy as you can manage. He leans in, examining it with a jeweler's eye, tilting it, tapping a tooth, even sniffing. Why? You do not ask. He straightens. Acceptable. You blink. Just acceptable? Fox raises an eyebrow. He's missing a molar. You almost laugh. He was buried in a pauper's plot. What do you expect? A porcelain smile? Fox doesn't laugh. He does, however, count out the rest of your payment. You pocket the coins. They clink like gilt. He offers one final comment before leaving. If you find anything with congenital asymmetry, cheekbones perhaps, I'm offering double. You nod, but inside, you're screaming. There's something about that request that feels personal. You spend the afternoon doing what you always do after a sale, wandering. You walk the cobbled streets of Edinburgh, past shop fronts, with warped glass, and children chasing dogs that might actually be wolves. The city smells like coal, cabbage, and the very distant edge of enlightenment. You pass the university gates. Surgeons walk in and out, arguing about humors and scalpels, completely unaware that the man who sold them their last cadaver also once fell asleep in a barrel behind the butcher's. You consider for a wild moment what it would be like to do something legal, like fishmongering or tailoring, or not digging up strangers in the middle of the night. But the truth is, you're not just in this for money. You're in it because there's a strange rhythm to it, a system, a secret little ecosystem of gravediggers, surgeons, and shadows. And you're part of the food chain now. That evening, you meet the surgeon. Not a surgeon, the surgeon. The one who really runs things behind the anatomy school. His name's never printed, never spoken aloud in the same tavern twice. You've only heard him called the gentleman. He sends a boy to fetch you. 12, maybe 13, wearing a cap too big and a grin too sharp. Come with me, the boy says, like it's an invitation and a threat in one. You follow him through twisting alleys, past windows with curtains that twitch when you pass. Eventually, you reach a narrow townhouse with shutters closed against the dusk. The door opens before you knock. Inside, it's warm and wrong. The gentleman sits beside a fire that doesn't seem to give off heat. He's in a high-backed chair, sipping something from a glass, shaped like a question mark. You're the one who brought Lord Flounce, he says without turning. You nod. Didn't know it was him. Still, he muses, you brought him in one piece. That's rare. You say nothing. He finally turns. His eyes are pale. Not cold, just unfinished. Like someone painted them, but forgot to add color. I need a body, he says. Whole, young, male. You wait. Tomorrow night. St. Mary's Field. Third row from the east wall. No damage, no missing parts, and absolutely no witnesses. You nod slowly. Payment? He smiles. You'll be taken care of. That could mean money. Or it could mean being buried under a floorboard. But you still nod because this is how it works. Surgeons with coin and secrets. That's the real market. Not the poor fellows with their amateur scalpels, but the elite. The ones who shape the next generation of medicine with your dirty work. Historians still debate whether these backroom deals helped advance science or simply allowed the privileged to dabble in death without consequence. You have your own theory. You leave with instructions burned into your mind. As you step into the night, Edinburgh stretches before you like a damp, soot-stained confession. Somewhere in this city is a grave with your name on it. But tonight you're still the one digging. You spend the whole next day thinking about it. Not the job. No, the job is straightforward. You've done dozens like it. A grave, a body, a buyer with cold hands and colder morals. What you're stuck on is why the gentleman wants this one. A whole young male body isn't exactly rare. Sad, yes, but not rare. Not in a city like Edinburgh, where disease, factory accidents, and poorly executed duels are all as common as rain and sarcasm. So what makes this one special? You don't ask, you never ask, but you wonder. And that's usually where the trouble starts. You pack early. The good sack, the one without the tear. Clean linen, oil for your tools, a candle stub, shaped like a melted duck. You don't know how it became duck-shaped, but it's now your lucky candle. You're not taking chances. The sky's bruised and low when you step outside, the kind of twilight that feels like it's leaning in to whisper something unpleasant. You take the long way. You check every alley twice. You pass the same coughing beggar 3 times. You even pause at the bakery to smell the bread, because if tonight goes badly, this might be your last olfactory joy. St. Mary's is quiet, too quiet. It doesn't have the usual groan of old hinges or the faint waft of moldy hymnals, just stillness. And that weird chirpy bird that only sings when something's about to go horribly wrong. You enter through the north side, less visible from the street, more likely to conceal your eventual panicked escape. You find the grave. It's freshly dug, no headstone yet, just a wooden marker hammered into the soil and a line of earth that looks like a scar. Third row from the east, wall. Just like he said, you kneel, you wait, and then you dig. This grave isn't like the others. The soil turns easier. No rocks, no clay. It's like someone wanted this one disturbed. The coffin is simpler than expected, almost too simple. No polish, no reinforcement, no effort. You pry it open and blink. He's perfect. That's not a word you use often. But this corpse, young, maybe 19, pale, but not wasted. Hair still soft. No disease, no deformities. Dressed plainly, but neatly. And he looks asleep. You hesitate. You don't know why. Maybe it's the way his hands are folded, too precisely. Or the fact that there's not a single scratch on his face. Or that, despite the damp soil, his shirt is still dry. Historians still argue whether embalming techniques were being tested in secret during this period, or whether some bodies simply refused to decay quickly. You're no scientist, but this one feels off. You do your job anyway. You wrap the body. You lift it, lighter than expected. You haul it over your shoulder like a sack of cabbages you really hope won't haunt you later. And then you hear it. A voice, soft, behind you. Stop. You freeze. You don't turn around. The voice repeats, put him back. You glance over your shoulder. There's no one there. Nothing but a thin trail of fog weaving between the stones. Your hands are shaking. You tell yourself it's the cold, the weight, the lack of sleep. You hoist the body higher and step out of the grave. Then, from the edge of your vision, you see it. A figure, standing still, just watching. You blink. It's gone. You move faster. You retrace your steps through the graveyard, past a headstone that now has a crack you swear wasn't there before. The fog thickens as you walk, clinging to your coat like anxious fingers. By the time you reach the delivery point, a cellar behind a blacksmith's, it's almost morning. The gentleman's assistant is waiting. Not the mustache man this time. A woman, pale, wearing gloves that look like they've never touched anything living. She opens the door, says nothing. You hand over the body. She doesn't unwrap it, just checks the tag on the toe. Nods. Payment, you say, teeth chattering now, not from the cold, but from something else. She gives you a small velvet pouch. You don't open it. You don't want to count money beside a corpse. As you turn to leave, she says something, soft, flat. You weren't supposed to see him. You stop. What? She says nothing else. You step outside. The sky is lighter now. Pinkish gray, like someone tried to paint hope and ran out halfway. You walk fast. When you finally get home, you bolt the door. Twice. You sit in the corner, staring at your boots, wondering if that fog was real. If that voice said what you think it did. If the dead really do rest, or if some just wait. You don't sleep that day, not even a nap. You haven't slept, but you pretend you have. That's one of your newer skills. Pretending things. Pretending your boots don't reek of grave mud. pretending your coat isn't stuffed with tools that technically classify as burglary equipment, pretending that delivering a pristine angel faced corpse to a woman with silk gloves and no expression didn't rattle you into next week. You sit in your room, watching the mold creep across the ceiling like it's charting its next conquest. The coin pouch lies on the table, unopened. You haven't touched it since she handed it to you. You've done this job long enough to know that sometimes the coins feel colder, wronger. You don't like wrong coins. Eventually, hunger wins. You slip the pouch into your coat, pull your hat down low, and head toward the tavern. Not your usual one. Tonight you need somewhere quieter, dimmer, somewhere that doesn't smell like old blood and fresh accusations. You find one near Cowgate. Fewer students, more fishermen. The kind of place where no one asks your name as long as you can pay and don't bleed on the floor. You take a seat by the hearth, order broth and ale, and then, because you're still pretending to be fine, you order another ale. That's when the man sits down across from you. You didn't see him enter. He doesn't remove his gloves. He just places a hand very gently on the table. You look at it, then him. He smiles. The body last night, was it aware? You blink. What? You heard something, didn't you? Or saw something? You say nothing. You're not in the habit of discussing corpse etiquette with strangers who materialize like bad dreams. He leans forward. You're not the first. We've tracked 6 others. All gone. All saw something. You stare, then laugh. One of those hollow, surely you're joking laughs. But he doesn't laugh. He leaves instead. No threat, no warning. Just gone. You glance around. No one else seems to have noticed. The barman is scolding a dog. Someone's playing a wheezy fiddle in the corner. The world hasn't ended. But something's shifted. You finish your ale and leave. Back on the street, Edinburgh feels different. Not darker, not colder, just watchful. You head toward the university. Not for work, just to look. It's lit up. Golden windows glowing against the soot-stained stone. Inside, you know, there's a room. A clean, cold room. And on a table in that room is the boy you unearthed. The perfect boy. The one who didn't look dead. You wonder what they're doing to him now. You imagine the students crowding around, faces eager, scalpels ready, voices loud in that academic, detached tone that doesn't quite acknowledge the body in front of them was ever a person. You picture the professor gesturing with one hand while peeling back skin with the other, as if unwrapping a particularly educational Christmas gift. You wonder if anyone will pause, just for a moment, and notice the lack of decay, the quiet curve of the mouth, the way the eyelids don't quite look sealed. You doubt it. Medical students in 1820s Edinburgh aren't known for sentimentality or sleep. You lean against a cold wall, across from the anatomy hall, watching the flicker of lanterns behind the tall windows. The air smells of wet stone and distant formaldehyde. You pull your coat tighter, more for comfort than warmth. There's an ache behind your eyes, the kind that comes from too much night work and not enough forgetting. As you stand there, the front door creaks open. 2 men exit. Surgeons, judging by the aprons and the faint air of practiced superiority. They're deep in conversation. You're telling me the muscle tone was still intact? One says, eyebrows nearly at his hairline. The other nods. No rigor, no rot, as if he'd been preserved the moment he died. The first scoffs. Impossible. The body was buried 3 days. I know, the second mutters. That's what bothers me. They pass by without noticing you. Just a man in a hat and a too thick coat. You wait a few minutes more, just long enough to convince yourself the lights in the window aren't flickering in any unnatural rhythm. Then you turn and walk away. Your feet carry you nowhere in particular. Past the market stalls being packed up for the night. Past a preacher shouting about divine judgment to an audience of one drunk and one very respectful goose. Past the shop that sells ink and scandal sheets, and sometimes very good pies. Eventually, you end up back at the tavern you said you weren't going to return to. Your seat's still open, the fire's still low, and the regulars are still arguing about whether or not the baker's boy is possessed by demons or just left handed. You sit, you nurse a lukewarm drink, you try to feel normal again. And then Jamie walks in. He looks worse than usual, which is saying something. His coat is buttoned wrong, his scarf smells like burned wool, and his eyes look like they haven't closed in 3 days. He sits next to you without a word. You wait. Finally, he says, "I saw it too." You stare. "The kid. The perfect one," he mutters. He opened his eyes. Just a crack. Just for a second. "Swear on my mum." You don't laugh. Not this time. Jamie leans closer. "They're not normal. These new bodies. You felt it too, right? We're not just digging anymore. We're," he lowers his voice, "delivering something." You want to argue. You really do. But the memory of that voice in the grave, put him back, echoes louder than your skepticism. Jamie finishes his drink in a single, unnecessary gulp and slams the cup down. People are going to notice," he says, "if they haven't already." And then, with the flair of a man who both knows too much and owns absolutely no backup plan, he stands and leaves. You sit there, staring into your mug, wondering if it's too late to become a chimney sweep. Historians still debate how many grave robbers became informants, how many disappeared, and how many simply lost the thread of their own sanity while digging in the dark. Some think they were victims. Some think they were collaborators. Most agree they were underpaid. You finally open the pouch. Inside, not coins, not exactly. Teeth, not old, not yellowed, white, perfect, human. You close the pouch slowly. Slide it into the fire without ceremony. Watch as the fabric blackens, shrivels, and vanishes in a single, silent gulp of flame. You don't sleep that night either, because this job, it's changing, and whatever's waiting beneath the next grave, it might be waiting for you. You spend the next 2 days doing nothing. Not nothing. You still eat and sleep in short, miserable shifts. You pace the room. You polish your tools. You fold and refold the same pair of socks so many times, they're starting to look nervous. But you don't work. You avoid the graveyards. Avoid the surgeons. Avoid Jamie too, though you spot him once through a pub window, talking to someone you don't recognize, someone with too many rings and not enough blinking. You keep walking. You tell yourself you're being smart, cautious, letting the fog clear, but you're also scared because something's changed. The air's different, the jobs are different, and if you're honest, you're different. Your hands tremble more. Your stomach knots before every errand, and that tight, dry knot in your throat, like someone whispered your name from 6 feet underground. It's always there now. It's a few nights later when the letter arrives. No seal, just a folded square of paper tucked under your door like an apology or a threat. Inside, neat writing in black ink. Southgate, 1 hour after midnight. Bring shovel. No questions. That's it. No name, no coin, just a location and the faint smell of rose water on the paper, which is somehow more unsettling than if it had smelled like blood. You fold it twice, then again. Burn it in your hearth. Watch the paper curl like a scream you don't want to hear. And yet, you go. Because of course you do. Midnight finds you beneath the south gate arch. Fog pressing in around you like curious hands. You wait. And just when you start convincing yourself it was a prank from Jamie, which, to be fair, would not be the worst thing he's done, a figure steps out from the mist. It's a woman. Same gloves, same silence, same disconcerting presence you felt that night you delivered the boy. She doesn't greet you, just walks. You follow. No words. Down past the tenements, past the brewery, past the edge of the city, where buildings thin out and the land goes soft underfoot. She stops at a copse of trees, points. You see it. A grave, unmarked, fresh. Your fingers twitch. She hands you a small pouch. Heavier than it looks. You pocket it without checking. Then you dig. The soil is oddly dry, despite the fog. Loose. As if someone's already disturbed it once, then tried to pretend they hadn't. You find the coffin quickly. Pine again. Crude nails. You hesitate. The woman says nothing. You open the lid. Inside is a man, about 30, face serene, skin pale, and just like the boy, perfect. No rot. No sag. Even his fingernails look manicured. He could be asleep. You check for a tag. There isn't one. You glance up, but the woman is already walking away. No sack this time. You wrap the man in the spare cloth, hoist him over your shoulder, and begin the slow, long walk back. You don't know where to deliver him. No address, no name, no clue. You walk the city like a ghost. And somehow, without meaning to, your feet take you back to the same anatomy hall. The side door creaks open when you knock once. You place the body inside, on the table near the tools. A different assistant greets you, young, hollow-eyed, smiling in a way that makes you cold inside your bones. Good, he says softly. They were expecting this one. You don't ask who they are. You take your leave. Outside, the wind shifts. You glance down at your coat and realize you're bleeding. There's a thin red line across your forearm. Shallow. Precise. Like the kind of cut a scalpel might leave if someone were testing the sharpness. But you haven't touched your tools. You don't remember being cut. Historians still argue whether some body snatchers were marked, branded, blooded, chosen by cultish factions within the medical elite. Most dismiss it as folklore, old stories to scare apprentices. But the blood on your sleeve is real. And it wasn't there an hour ago. You walk home. Sleep doesn't come. Your candle burns low. And somewhere across the city, in a clean white room, someone begins an incision on a man who should never have bled. You wake up to tapping. Not knocking, not footsteps. Tapping. Measured. Deliberate. Like someone gently rapping a spoon against your conscience. You sit up, heart pounding. The sound stops. Your room is quiet again, save for the wheeze of the wind through the cracked pane and the faraway clatter of a cart on cobblestone. You press your palms into your face and try to remember when your life last felt normal. Then you realize this is normal now. Graves, corpses, perfect strangers, coin purses that clink like warnings, ghosts that don't stay put. You dress slowly, as if that might buy you time. You check your tools, out of habit more than intent. You're not planning to dig tonight, not unless something truly compelling or truly terrifying drags you back into the dirt. But something does. A knock at your door, a real one this time. You freeze. No one ever knocks. The few people who know you either barge in or whistle from the stairs. You cross the room quietly, listening. Who is it, you ask? A pause, then a voice. Payment for last night. You open the door. No one's there. But at your feet, another pouch, black velvet, and next to it, A pair of gloves, white, surgical. You don't touch them. You wait until the hallway's empty, then scoop the pouch with the corner of a rag like it's cursed. Because honestly, at this point, probably. You don't open it. You toss it onto the hearth like a rotten potato and sit down hard on the bed. Something's wrong. You've known that for a while now. But this feels different. The job last night wasn't a request, it was a command. There was no name, no contact, no buyer, just a body that had to be moved. You're starting to feel like less of a thief and more of a courier for something you don't understand. And you're not alone. You see Jamie that afternoon, though "see" might be generous. He's huddled in a doorway on Victoria Street, muttering to himself. His coat is shredded at the hem, and his hands are raw. "Jamie?" you ask gently. He flinches, then looks up. "Don't go to the graveyard tonight," he says. "Don't, even. Look." You kneel beside him. "What happened?" He laughs. Not kindly. "I followed one. Thought I'd get ahead. Thought I'd make real coin." You wait. "It knew I was there. Not the surgeon. The body. It sat up. Before I even touched it." You feel something crawl up your spine. "Jamie, what did you do?" "I ran." He chuckles again. "Left my tools. Left my boots. I ran barefoot through cobbles like a lunatic." You don't know what to say, so you don't say anything. You help him to his feet. Get him to the tavern. Order him soup. Watch him fall asleep in the corner booth, still clutching your sleeve like an anchor. That night you stay indoors. You bolt the door. Double. Then again. You keep your tools in their bag. You don't light the candle. But you do listen, because something is scratching at your window, just faintly, like fingernails on glass. You wait it out. You pretend it's wind, or a branch, or guilt. Guilt can make noises, right? Eventually it stops. You fall asleep sometime around dawn, curled up fully clothed, one hand still clutching the shovel you swore you weren't going to use. In your dream, you dig and dig and dig. But no matter how deep you go, there's always someone already there, looking up, smiling. Historians still debate whether grave robbing ever intersected with the occult, whether body snatchers were just pawns in larger games of resurrection, experimentation, or stranger ambitions. Some say it's nonsense. Others swear certain names reappeared in records after death, quietly, without comment. You don't believe in much anymore, but you do believe in what you've seen. And tonight, you believe in locks. There are two things you learn very quickly as a body snatcher. 1. Most graves aren't marked properly. 2. Most bodies aren't who they say they are. Tonight, both of those truths come to bite you hard. You didn't plan to work. Truly, you told yourself you'd take the week off. Let Jamie recover. Let the city breathe a little. Maybe even scrub your boots. But then a boy showed up at your door. Couldn't be more than 10, all knees and dirt, holding a folded note like it was a holy relic. "The doctor says come," he muttered, eyes down. That's it. You tried to ask which doctor. The boy was gone before the second syllable left your lips. You didn't follow immediately. You debated, paced, talked to yourself for a solid hour, but eventually you packed your tools. Because you always do. The grave is in a part of Canongate you don't usually visit. Older section, less patrolled, but strangely pristine. Clean headstones, fresh flowers, not a rat in sight. You check the marker. It's a woman's name. You double check your note. No name, of course. Just a small diagram. 3 X's, 1 crooked arrow, a sketch that might be a tree or a very surprised goose. You confirm the location. It matches. So you dig. The soil is packed, dry, coarse. Takes longer than usual. Your arms ache. Sweat trickles down your spine in that charming way that makes you feel like your shirt is trying to abandon ship. You reach the coffin. It's older, pine, cracked. You open it and swear under your breath. It's not the woman on the marker, it's a man, barely dressed, young, and unmistakably fresh. As in, not dead long, maybe a day, maybe less. You don't know who he is, but his eyes are still half lidded, and his mouth is slightly open, like he died in the middle of asking a question. You've done this job long enough to know when something doesn't feel right. You wrap the body, you lift it, you get out fast. It's heavier than it should be, like he knows you're carrying him. You cut through alleys you haven't used in years, ones that smell like vinegar and rats with trust issues. You reach the drop point, a cellar beneath a tavern that hasn't served drinks in 5 years. There's no one waiting, just an envelope on a crate. Inside, instructions to leave the body. No coin, no name, no signature. You do it anyway, because it's not like you can bring him home. You go straight to Jamie's after. He opens the door slowly. He looks better, but not by much. You tell him what happened. He nods, doesn't interrupt. Finally, he says, "You want to see something?" You follow him into his back room. There's a table. On it, a small collection of things: a scarf, a shoe, a pocketbook with initials embossed in faded gold. "These," Jamie says, "came from the same grave." You blink. "But that's not—" "I know. The body wasn't hers." You stare at the shoe. It's small, delicate, definitely a woman's. "Who's buried there now?" you ask. Jamie shrugs. "No idea, but someone's switching them." You don't speak for a long moment. Then you say, "Why?" Jamie looks at you like you've just asked why the rain falls. "Because someone needs something," he whispers. "And they're practicing." You don't ask what he means by practicing. You don't want to know. Historians still argue whether any of the graveyard swaps recorded during the Georgian period were deliberate, mistaken identities, or something more sinister. There are reports of bodies missing, but graves untouched, of headstones bearing names that never belonged to the buried, of surgeons who asked for the boy in the red vest, only to receive him days later. No vest, no explanation. You leave Jamie's with a headache and a gut feeling that your job title is no longer accurate. You're not a snatcher anymore. You're a middleman. And something else is pulling the strings. That night, as you lie awake, your ear pressed to the thin wall, you swear you hear someone say your name, not loudly, just once, from the floorboards. You don't go outside the next day, not because of the weather, though it's miserable in the very specific way only Edinburgh in late October can manage. Cold enough to hurt your teeth, damp enough to make every step feel like wading through someone's forgotten laundry. You stay in because you don't want to see anything. Not the graveyard, not the alley, not a reflection in a rain-slicked window that might move when you don't. You barricade your room with furniture you didn't even know you owned. You lay your tools out across the floor like a protective circle. You eat crackers and pretend they taste like resolve. And still, when the church bells start tolling in the morning mist, you flinch, because they aren't for you. They never are. But they might be about you. The bells ring 12 times. You wait. Then 13. You count again. No mistake. 13 tolls. You sit on your bed and whisper a short phrase that might be a prayer, might be a threat, might be a recipe for despair. Eventually, you drift into sleep, or something like it. You dream of fields. Not graveyards, just green fields, soft wind, wildflowers. Then you turn over a stone and find a body beneath it. Then another. Then hundreds. All lined neatly. Their faces blank. Their mouths open like they were trying to scream something important at the grass. You wake up gasping. You need air, You leave just before dusk, slipping down the stairs past your landlady's door like a rumor. You make for the high street, thinking maybe crowds will feel safer. That maybe the normal rattle of carts and the cries of fishmongers and drunk students will blot out the weight pressing on your chest. They don't, because as you pass a butcher's stall, you hear someone call out, "Hey, you still moving bodies?" You stop cold. Turn. It's a boy, 16 maybe, smiling too wide, like he's in on a joke you weren't invited to. "I heard you're one of them," he says. "The ones who work for the gentleman." You don't answer. He leans in. "I got a job for you. Quick one. Pays double. Not interested." His smile doesn't fade. You will be. He turns and vanishes into the crowd, like a magician or a debt. You walk, faster now, down a side street, through a court, past the bakery, where you once stole a roll and felt guilty about it for a week. You left a coin under the door. You're not a monster. Then suddenly, you're at the churchyard wall. You didn't mean to come here. You look up. That grave, the one from last week, the boy's grave, the one that shouldn't have existed, it's gone. Not just smoothed over, gone. Grass grown in, no mark, no dip in the earth, like the ground forgot it ever opened. You walk along the wall, hands in pockets, hoping to find something, anything, that proves your memory wasn't playing tricks. But there's nothing. Then you see the milkman. That wouldn't be odd, normally, except it's midnight, and he's just standing in the middle of the path, holding two empty bottles, staring at you. You freeze. He lifts a hand, not in greeting, just lifts it, then turns and walks away. You don't follow. You head home. On the way, you pass three women singing an old lullaby, one that ends with a child being buried under the hearth for luck. You don't like that song. At home, you unbolt the door, step inside, and stop, because there's a shoe in the middle of your floor, not yours. Delicate, black leather, women's. The exact same one you saw in Jamie's collection from that swapped grave. You don't touch it. You sit on your bed and stare at it. You stay that way for hours, until the bells ring again. Only this time, they stop at 12, but you swear you hear something breathing under the floor. Historians still argue whether the 13th toll phenomenon, reported by grave robbers and church caretakers in the early 1800s, was an auditory hallucination brought on by exhaustion and guilt, or whether it was, as some claimed, a sign that something buried had returned of its own accord. Many scoff, but the accounts persist. Just like the shoe, you still haven't touched it. You don't leave the shoe where it is. You try. For a few hours, you just let it sit there on the floor, daring it to move, daring yourself to believe it's just leather and stitching, and not a quiet scream in footwear form. But eventually, curiosity and dread form an alliance and march you over to it. You pick it up. It's heavier than it should be. Not by much, just enough. You turn it over. The sole is pristine. Not a scratch. No wear. As if it had never touched earth or stone or feet. That's the part that gets you. Not the shape, not the impossibility. It's the newness. It doesn't belong in your world. Your world is frayed laces, broken heels, and soles worn smooth from running down alleys with something unspeakable in your bag. You place it on the windowsill, as far from your bed as possible. It stares at you the way only inanimate objects can, judgmentally. And then, as if on cue, someone knocks. Not on your door, on your window. The second story window. You don't move. The knock comes again. 3 precise taps. You inch toward the glass. Heart tap dancing against your ribs. Outside nothing. Just mist and the dim outline of chimney stacks. You exhale slowly. Then spot it. A handprint on the inside of the glass. You don't scream, but only because you're out of breath. You spend the rest of the night awake, coat on, boots laced, shovel in hand, just in case. Dawn arrives like a disappointed teacher. Light seeps in, unwelcome. You peel yourself off the chair and decide, enough. Time to do something bold. Stupid. Both. You go to the records office. Not a place you frequent. It smells like wet parchment and elderly disappointment. But if anyone can tell you who's meant to be buried in the graves you've been tampering with, it's the women and men in dusty coats and sharper memories than you think. You bribe the clerk with a sweet roll and a whispered confession of, I'm just researching my uncle. Died suddenly. Bit odd, the burial. She nods like she's heard that one before. Pulls out the registry. You give her the names you remember. Two don't appear at all. One appears twice. Buried a year apart. Same name, same age, different plots. The boy? No listing. Not under that grave. Not under any name near it. It's like he skipped the paperwork entirely. You ask to see the burial permit. She gives you a blank look. Permit? Body can't be buried without one, you say. Technically, yes, she answers. But this grave, she checks again. Never had one requested or approved. You thank her, leave slowly, and start wondering how many others have slipped in without a name. That night, you find a note under your door. Again. We know you looked. Stop. That's it. No threats, no signature, no ink smear. Just certainty. You sit in your room with the note in your lap and the shoe still on the windowsill and try to decide whether you're terrified or proud. You've unearthed more than bones, it seems. You go to see Jamie. He looks worse again. He hasn't shaved. He hasn't slept. He's drinking tea out of what appears to be an old boot. I had another visitor, he says. Not police, not a buyer, just someone who knew things. What things? About me, my family, things I haven't said out loud in years. You sit. Someone's watching us, he says. Has been, since before this started. You nod. Then ask, what do we do? Jamie stares into his tea boot. Dig deeper. Historians still argue whether the 1820s body trade in Edinburgh became entangled with political or religious factions interested in controlling the very concept of death. Some say it was medical ambition, gone too far. Others say it was something older, cultish, ritualistic, and buried under layers of science and silence. You're not sure which is worse. On your way home, you pass a woman lighting candles at a grave. You glance at the name. You pause. It's your name. Not a similar one. Not close. Exactly yours. First and last. No dates. Just a single inscription. Let no hand disturb this rest. You turn around. The woman's gone. Just candles now, flickering like nervous breaths. You walk away fast. You sleep with your boots on again, and this time, when the tapping starts, it's not at the window. It's under the floorboards. You try to pretend it isn't happening. You stuff a rag under the bed. Move the trunk over the spot where the tapping started. Light every candle you own and sit with your back to the wall like a soldier on night watch. You even hum, something tuneless and shaky. Something your mother might have sung when the wind rattled the shutters and claimed it was just the weather. It isn't just the weather now. You don't sleep. In the morning, the tapping stops. You tell yourself it's over. You lie. It's not. By noon, the church bell rings 13 times again. You don't count them, but you feel each one in your chest. Jamie sends word, short and smudged. We were wrong. It's not about the bodies. It's about the space they leave behind. You don't know what that means, but it curdles your tea. You walk to the cemetery, in daylight this time. You think maybe it'll help. Maybe you'll see it for what it is, a place of stone and soil and silence. But even in sunlight, it hums, not a noise, a feeling, like the ground is breathing under your feet. You find the boy's grave, or where it should be, still grass, still nothing. But there's a mark now, a circle of pressed down earth as if someone, or something, stood there overnight, waiting. A groundskeeper approaches. He's older, limping. His face is one big wrinkle of disapproval. You looking for something? He asks. You shake your head. He eyes you. They say you're one of the diggers. You stay quiet. He spits. Used to be. The dead stayed where we put 'em. You turn to leave. He calls after you. Whatever you're waking up, best you put it back. You don't stop walking. Back home, you find another note. Same handwriting, same perfume. Stop looking. One more and we dig for you. You sit in your chair and laugh. Not because it's funny, but because you're too tired for anything else. You pour yourself something strong. The kind of strong that eats through the mug. You drink it anyway. Then, because you're an idiot, you go out again. This time to the university. Not to the anatomy theater, but to the records hall. The private one. You bribe your way in. You ask for the dissection logs. You're told those are restricted. You wait until the clerk takes a break, then you stop asking. You find what you're looking for, or think you do. There's a pattern. Every fifth dissection, no name, no donor records, no burial source. Just delivered. Specimen. Unnumbered. The descriptions match what you've seen. Young, pristine, unusually well preserved, and every single one ends the same way. Specimen disappeared, no remains. Historians still debate whether these records were clerical errors, lost paperwork, or signs of something stranger. The files were eventually corrected, but original copies, a few survive. This one is now in your coat. You run, back into the street, lungs burning, coat flapping like a flag of warning. You don't know where you're going until you're there. Jamie's, you knock. No answer. You push the door open. The room is empty. No signs of struggle. No signs of Jamie. Just a note on the table. One word. Downstairs. You check the floorboards. You find the hatch. You open it. And inside, lit by a single swinging lantern, is a staircase carved from stone. It goes deeper than it should. You descend step by step. The walls drip. The air shifts. The smell is old books, wet cloth, and something metallic that might be blood or memory. At the bottom, you find them. Rows of tables. Bodies, all the same. Young, pale, whole. Some have eyes open. Some don't. One sits up. You scream. You don't remember leaving. You don't remember the run. Just the sound of your boots on stone and your own name echoing behind you, whispered by voices that shouldn't have mouths. You wake up hours later. Back in your bed. Note on your chest. Final warning. You burn it. And start packing. Because maybe it's time to stop digging. Maybe it's time to disappear. But as you toss your coat into your bag, something falls from the pocket. The shoe. You'd forgotten it. But it hasn't forgotten you. You try to throw it away. You can't. It stays. Historians still argue whether any of the Georgian-era body snatchers vanished deliberately or were taken by the very forces they unearthed. Some accounts claim they were silenced. Others say they joined something deeper, bigger, beneath. You don't know what to believe anymore. But tonight, you leave a note of your own. I'm done. No more. Let me be. You place it on the windowsill, next to the shoe, and for the first time in a week, the tapping stops. You wake to silence, not peace, just absence. The kind of silence that wraps around you like wool soaked in something cold. No wind, no footsteps, no tapping, not even the crows arguing on the steeple, which frankly makes you more nervous than comforted. Your note is still on the windowsill, but the shoe is gone. You stare at the spot where it sat for days. You even reach out, as if your hand might confirm what your eyes refused to. Just empty wood, dust, and a faint imprint where the leather once rested, like it decided to leave politely. You check your door. Locked. Bolted. The window? Still latched. No broken glass. No scratches. Just gone. You tell yourself this is a good sign. Then you find the second shoe. Right outside your door. A perfect match. Laces tied. Facing your room. Waiting. You don't pick it up. You go out. You need answers. Or, failing that, you need someone else to be as confused and terrified as you are. You head straight for the records office again. The same clerk, the same weary sigh when she sees you. You again. You slide her a coin. I need death notices, unusual burials, names that repeat. She narrows her eyes. You one of those churchyard poets? Worse, you say. I'm a concerned citizen. She rolls her eyes, but brings you the books anyway. You spend 2 hours flipping through names, dates, sites. A pattern forms, irregular but persistent. Graves ordered under names that don't appear in city census records. A flurry of new burials in plots that had been inactive for decades, and always the same hand ordering them. Someone called Dr. B. Wren. The name means nothing to you, so you ask. And she laughs. Just once. Not kindly. That's not a real person. Excuse me? It's a ghost, she says, filing papers. Urban legend. The surgeons joke about it. Anytime something weird happens, a missing body, paperwork with no origin, it's always must have been Dr. Wren. Wren as in, she shrugs, like the bird, small, quick, here then gone. You leave before she asks more questions. Outside, the wind picks up again. Just a little, enough to rustle the paper you forgot was still in your pocket. The old dissection log with all the vanished specimens. At the bottom of the page, scrawled in ink that's faded but legible, is a signature. B. Wren. You stare. You don't remember seeing that before. You fold the paper. Slower this time. You don't go home. You go to the university, to the medical wing. You don't knock. You slip in through the side door, the one that always creaks like it wants to betray you. Inside, the halls are empty, quiet, as though class let out early, or perhaps no one wants to stay past dusk anymore. You walk past rows of cabinets, jars filled with things that shouldn't be pickled. You see floating eyes, a foot with 6 toes, a heart far too large to belong to any human who survived long. You reach the records annex. You pick the lock. Inside, files, thousands of them. You look for one labeled Wren. You find 10, all different, all listing separate medical credentials, different universities, dates that don't match, and yet all in the same handwriting. You pull out the oldest one. At the bottom, a sketch of a raven. You don't know why it scares you more than anything else. Maybe because you've seen it before. Not the drawing, but the bird. It's always there, watching, on rooftops, headstones. That one night, perched on a spade like it had something to say. You slam the file shut. You're about to leave when you hear the knock. Not on the door. From inside the cabinet, you freeze. 3 slow taps. You should run. You know that. Instead, you open it. Inside, nothing. Just an old medical coat. White, stiff, and in the pocket, the shoe. Again. But now, there's a note tucked inside. You're almost there. Historians still argue whether Dr. Wren ever existed, or if the name was simply a stand-in, a catch-all pseudonym for something unnameable. Some say he was a surgeon turned collector. Others think he was an invention of sleep-deprived students. A handful claim he's still alive, buried somewhere beneath the cobblestones, operating in secret. You don't know what he is, but he knows you now, and whatever game he's playing, you've been moved a step closer to the center. You take the shoe, leave the building, Behind you, the halls stay dark, but as you walk away, the bell rings once. Just once. And your footsteps echo louder than they should. You don't go home. You walk. Down every crooked lane, every alley that's barely a whisper between buildings. You keep your hands in your pockets and your thoughts tightly coiled because the alternative, the unraveling, feels too close now. You've got the shoe again. Just one. Still warm, still unsoiled, still maddeningly there, as if your hands are incapable of truly losing it. You dropped it twice along the walk. Both times, it was back in your coat pocket before the next corner. You're being followed, not by footsteps, nothing so obvious, but there's something present behind you, like a fog that has thoughts, like a gaze on the back of your neck that moves when you move, breathes when you breathe. You test it, double back. Take a right, then a left, then a stairwell no one ever uses except rats and criminals. Still there. You duck into Jamie's building. His door is locked. You knock. No answer. You break in. The flat is empty. Not just of Jamie, of everything. No chair, no mug, no boots, no sign he ever lived there. Even the dust feels like it was arranged to say, no one here. You sit down on the floor, because what else can you do? You stay there until dark. Then someone knocks. Not the door, the window. Fourth story. You don't move at first. Then you force yourself to walk over. You open the curtains. Nothing, but pressed into the condensation on the glass is a fingerprint. Not a handprint. Just one perfect, delicate print, like someone touched it thoughtfully, just to say hello. You wipe it away with your sleeve and find yourself looking into your own reflection, except it blinks. You jump back, fall into Jamie's dustless void of a room, and then you do something that surprises even you. You laugh, because of course it blinked. Of course Jamie vanished. Of course the shoe keeps coming back, and the birds keep watching, and the dead aren't quite behaving. You've stopped being horrified. You've graduated to something worse. Familiarity. You leave the flat. You walk straight to the graveyard. You don't even pretend you're just passing by this time. You go to the oldest part, where the headstones lean like gossipers, where no new graves have been dug in 100 years, officially, where moss makes things look more comforting than they should. You find it. You don't know how, but you do. A stone with no name, just a carved wren, perched on a branch. You kneel beside it, because that's what this moment requires. You touch the stone. It's warm. And then, because apparently you've given up on self-preservation, you speak aloud. What do you want from me? The wind shifts, and something behind you says, you. Not loudly, not cruelly, just like a fact. You turn. There's no one there, just a figure, 10 feet away, shadowed, still, unmistakably watching. You blink. They're gone. But in their place, a package, wrapped in oilskin. You pick it up. Inside is a coat, your size, black, tailored. In the breast pocket, a card. Dr. B. Wren's assistant. No name. Just yours. Historians still argue whether the sudden disappearances of known body snatchers were a result of capture, murder, or conscription into a deeper, darker system. One theory suggests that those who graduated were recruited into a hidden order of anatomical caretakers, preservers of a secret archive of bodies never meant to decompose. You hold the coat for a long time. Then, almost automatically, you slip it on. It fits perfectly. Your feet carry you, without much consent, to the university, to the basement entrance, the one no one uses. You knock 3 times. The door opens. No one visible. Just a staircase. Down. Of course, you descend. The walls flicker with gaslight. The air smells like ink and ether and something ancient. At the bottom, a room. And in that room, bodies. lined in rows, but not just lying there. Some are standing, some seated, some arranged like scholars at rest. All pristine, all preserved. And at the center, in a high backed chair facing away, a man, still. Dr. Wren, you ask, voice breaking. The chair turns, but it's you. It's your face, not today's face. Older, tired, smiling, just slightly. And then you says, we were waiting. The lights flicker. Your coat tightens at the seams, like it's remembering its shape. You stand very still and wonder, how long have you been dead? The room doesn't breathe. That's the first thing you notice. Not that it lacks air. No, there's air, all right. You're still inhaling something vaguely antiseptic and centuries old. But the room itself doesn't breathe. It doesn't flex or creak or shudder like Edinburgh's buildings usually do when the wind shifts. It just sits, quiet, waiting. You look at him, at you. He, your older mirror, still smiles that soft, tired smile, like he knows how the story ends and isn't particularly impressed. He doesn't rise. He just gestures to the seat opposite his. You hesitate, because of course you do, but eventually you sit. The chair's cold. He speaks at last. I know you're confused. You blink. I'd prefer violently disoriented. He chuckles. It sounds like your laugh. If it had been aged in bourbon and regret. You've done well. Lasted longer than most. Most what? You ask. Grave robbers, lunatics, sleep-deprived ghouls in overcoats, all of the above. You fold your arms. The coat, the one you found in the oilskin package, tightens slightly, like it's remembering something before you do. He nods toward the bodies lining the walls. They're not what you think. You glance. Some look asleep. Some look posed. Some, well, you try not to look at the ones near the back. They aren't just cadavers, he continues. They're memories. You wait. He steeples his fingers. Yours. We thought we were selling flesh. But we were ferrying souls. You laugh. You can't help it. That's rich, coming from someone in a dissecting coat. Bodies leave echoes, he says, and when you disturb too many of them, the echoes start talking back. You remember the voice in the grave, the tapping under the floor, the shoe. Historians still argue, you mutter, half to yourself, whether body snatchers ever became part of what they disturbed. He tilts his head. And yet here you are. You want to ask how, why, when this started. But all the words get tangled in your throat. Instead you say, Jamie? He nods, slowly. He was offered the same seat. Declined. You feel something cold in your chest. Where is he? The man you sighs. Gone. Or possibly not yet arrived. Time's odd down here. You stand. I'm not doing this, you say. I know, he replies calmly, but you will. You walk away. Not fast. There's nowhere to run to, just toward the stairs. They're gone. Where the doorway once was, brick, unbroken, seamless. You turn back. He hasn't moved. Neither have the bodies. You stare at one. It stares back. No, wait. Its eyes are closed. You blink. Now they're open. You step away. Your breath is shallow, fast. The man stands now. You back up, bump into a table. A scalpel clatters to the floor. They're not alive, he says. Not anymore. Comforting, you snap. And yet, still horrifying. He holds something out. It's the shoe. The first one. The one that started all this. This is yours now. No, you whisper. I don't want it. But you've already carried it. You shake your head. This place, you say. This room. This game. What is it? He gestures around. This is the archive. Of the unburied, the forgotten, the interrupted. They're not forgotten. They are now. You hold the shoe in your hand. It feels warm. pulsing slightly, like it has a memory of walking. I'm not staying. You already have. The walls are whispering now, not voices, just names. Yours, Jamie's. Others you've never heard, but recognize anyway. Each body hums a little louder. He, older you, steps forward, places a hand on your shoulder. I'm sorry, but once you disturb the dead, eventually they disturb you. Then he walks past you to the far wall. He touches one of the bodies. Its eyes close, and he sighs. I'll rest now. And just like that, he sits, slumps, fades, not dramatically, just exits. And you're alone, except you're not, because now the coat fits perfectly. The light tilts. The whispers settle. You understand the system now. You won't be digging graves anymore. You'll be keeping them. Historians still argue whether the legend of Dr. Wren was an allegory of guilt, of curiosity gone too far, of the weight we carry when we meddle with things that should sleep. Others insist he was real, that he still walks, that those who vanish near cemeteries aren't taken, they're recruited. You sit, not because you want to, because there's no standing left. And across the room, one of the cadavers opens its eyes and smiles, just like yours. You're not sure how long you sit there. There are no clocks in the room, no windows, no cues from sun or street sounds, just the low flicker of lanterns that never seem to burn down, and the hush of bodies not quite silent. You listen to your own breath. Count it. Try to keep the rhythm steady, because that's the one sound in here you still trust. At least you think it's yours. The coat settles around you like a second skin. Every time you shift, it shifts too, almost before you do. Like it remembers your movements from before you even thought to make them. You glance across the room. The table where he sat, you, older, tired, already resigned, is empty now, but not gone. You still feel it. The presence, or the absence of it. Like a song that stopped playing mid-note, but the echo hangs on in the corner of your skull. You stand, just to see if you can. The coat doesn't resist. You cross the room slowly. There's a shelf of files, names, tags, small square drawers. You pull one. Inside is a label. Delivered, no name. Preserved, intact. Status, in process. You slide the drawer shut. Another drawer, Jamie A. Rejected. You pause. Rejected? Maybe that means he got out. Maybe it means something else entirely. You don't know where he is, or what he is. But the thought steadies you. You keep moving. A journal rests on the corner of the main table. Black leather, worn. You open it. The handwriting is neat, familiar, your own. Page after page of notes. Observations, names, reflections. Some of them are dated years from now. You turn the page. It says, he finally understands. The silence is not absence. It's waiting. You close the journal. You hear movement behind you, not footsteps, just the soft creak of something shifting. You turn. One of the bodies has changed position. Its head tilted just slightly in your direction. Its eyes are closed, but its mouth is open, like it's about to speak. You stare for a long moment. Then something occurs to you. A simple truth. The dead aren't angry. They're lonely. And maybe that's what this has always been about. Not punishment, not horror, just company. You walk to the table, pick up the tools, scalpels, threads, vials. The lamp flares, and you begin your work. Not digging now, not robbing. Preserving. You don't know how long you'll be here, what you'll become, whether you'll fade like the others or be the next one to sit in that chair when someone else descends the steps looking for answers. But for now, you're part of the silence, part of the keeping, part of the story that no one tells unless they're already in too deep. Historians still argue whether Edinburgh's body Snatchers were grave robbers, secret surgeons, or reluctant archivists of souls too loud to stay buried. The records remain inconclusive. But sometimes, in the quiet corners of the city, if you press your ear to the stone, you'll swear you hear breathing. And sometimes, it's yours. Let's slow everything down now. You're still here, with me, but the room is a little dimmer. The flickering lamps have faded to just a gentle warmth. There's no tapping, no breathing, no rustle of coats that move on their own, just stillness. Deep, reassuring stillness. Whatever followed you through the story, whether it was the whisper of a footstep or the ghost of a question you weren't ready to ask, it's softened now, curled up quietly, letting you be. You're safe. No graveyards, no scalpel gleam, no shoes that won't stay lost. Just soft fabric around your shoulders, a pillow with a cool side, the quiet hush of the room you're in, and the faint hum of the world outside moving on without you for just a little while. Close your eyes if they're not closed already. Let the tension slip down from your shoulders, out through your hands. Let your breath grow long and slow, like the mist rolling through the cobbled alleys of a city you once knew but never really left. The bodies are resting now. The stories have been told, and you've earned your peace tonight. So wherever you're listening from, whatever corner of the world or time zone or imagination you came in through, know this. You made it to the end. And the end is soft. Sleep well, body snatcher. Tomorrow can dig itself.